Okay, we're going to get started. I'd like to welcome everybody for the regular council meeting for Tuesday, September the 10th at 7 o'clock. Before we get started, the Village of Anmore would like to open our meeting by recognizing the many Indigenous peoples of our area, including the following First Nations with communities that are located in the region that we now know as Metro Vancouver. They are the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam. Further, we would like to honor the important place in history occupied by the many territorial keepers of these lands and waters around us since time immemorial. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Could I get someone to the recommendation to the agenda be approved as circulated? Moved. Seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Public input. Public is encouraged to participate with anything that is on the meeting agenda. This gives you an opportunity to say a few things. I wanted to start off by going, we've received several written submissions regarding the ways the village will be honoring the efforts and contributions that former Mayor Hal Weinberg made to our community, and these letters were circulated to council prior to tonight's meeting. We consulted with the Weinberg family and their representative throughout the process of determining the best ways we could honor Hal. The resolution, as shown in the agenda, are very high level and necessary to assign public funds to cover costs. We appreciate the feedback that has been received, and staff is working with the Weinberg family on details to implement this well-deserved recognition. A few other reminders before I open up comments to the public. Matters raised here are for council's consideration and should be constructively focused on agenda items only. Please limit comments to 2 minutes and save any questions for question period later in the evening. Regarding item 9B, Pinnacle Ridge rezoning application, bylaw number 699-2024, the village is prohibited from holding a public hearing by provincial legislation and must not receive comments on this item. And that's it. Anybody else would like to provide any other comments of public input?
Is that correct?
I can't.
He was asking what that meant. It means you can come up and speak for 2 minutes. That's what you're.
And provide
am I correct?
comments.
Yes. Okay. Can I do that?
Please.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tracy Green from Port Moody. I just wanted to start by saying I was at Maury Day this weekend, and what a fantastic event. It was so nice to see so many friendly faces at the Spirit Park. So I'm here to speak specifically on item 7A of the agenda, the release. Hello? Is that better?
I'm able to hear you, so I can't.
Is it better? I'll just do this. I'll
Okay.
lean in. I'm a little tall like you. So anyways, Tracy Green from Port Moody. I'm here to speak on item 7A of the agenda, the release of the in-camera resolutions recognizing former Mayor Hal Weinberg. So firstly, I wanted to express my gratitude to Council for considering ways the village can honor Anmore's first and founding mayor. I also want to thank Mayor McEwen for fielding many of my calls and emails over the spring and summer to keep this recognition discussion moving forward while the Weinbergs focused on their family. So I'm really thrilled that the park will be named the Dr. Hal Weinberg Spirit Park. It's a very fitting tribute to a place that Hal loved, which brings so many people and community together. So the formalization of the scholarship with a significant increase is another great recognition of Hal's commitment to youth and education in the village. The photo installation in the Village Hub will be a wonderful addition. I can't wait to see Hal's smiling face. And I believe you're close to completing this commemoration, but as I've shared, I feel it's important to add context to Hal's photo, something that captures the vision that Hal had as area director in the 1970s and 80s to preserve Anmore's way of life by seeking incorporation of the village in 1987, and honors the dedication that he showed for more than 2 decades as Anmore's first and founding mayor. So I hope the council will consider adjusting the resolution to include additional wording and to working with the Weinberg family on finding the right words to honor a life so well lived. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Name and address, please.
My name is Peter Ludman at 200 Hemlock Drive. I was honored to be on the council when Spirit Park was inaugurated, and I remember on council most of us agreed that it should really be called the Hal Weinberg Park, and knowing Hal was such a humble man, he refused that to happen, but I'm in total support because I think that's absolutely appropriate that we name the park after Hal Weinberg, and I appreciate council's consideration on that matter.
Good.
That's it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Nancy Maloney, 1724 East Road. And, I couldn't really hear what other people were saying, but I also wanted to thank council for the recognition for the contributions of Hal Weinberg and family, without whom our village would not even exist. And I think possibly consistent with what Tracy was saying, I would like to request that additional language be added to the photograph, which will be here in the hub, to recognize Hal's contributions to our village as opposed to just names and dates. And for that additional recognition on the photograph, I would actually request that that the input from the Weinberg family be incorporated, if at all possible. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments before we move on?
Hi, my name is Sarah Weinberg. I live in Squamish, and I grew up here in Anmore. And I'm the youngest daughter of the founding mayor of Hal Weinberg, founding mayor of Anmore, Hal Weinberg. I'm here as a family representative, and we're here, we just as a family want to recognize that council is commemorating Hal's passing with the renaming of Spirit Park, which is wonderful, to the Hal Weinberg Spirit Park. Was very important to him, as well as the continuation and solidification of the Hal Weinberg Scholarship Fund, which is great. He really believed in young people educating themselves by traveling the world. We also understand that City Council is going to put up a photo and plaque in the new hub, which is amazing. And we do feel that the wording on the plaque is a bit simplistic and just doesn't really encompass his true spirit and nature. We did have some quick input from community members, which have supported us over the years, which we're very grateful for, and suggest to council something more like Hal Weinberg, founding mayor of Anmore and visionary, whose innovative spirit, love of collaboration, and belief in diversity helped shape this community, which I think is something concise and represents his true spirit a little better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public inputs regarding tonight's agenda items before we move on? Okay, we'll move on then. Got no delegations. Adoption of the minutes. Minutes of the regular council meeting held on July 16th, 2024. Could I get someone to move the recommendation?
So moved.
Seconded. Any discussion? Seen none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Nope. Okay, we have I'll move on now to the consent agenda. Anyone wanting to pull anything from the consent agenda? Councillor Wevering.
A and B, please.
Anybody else? No? Could I get then someone to move the remaining items on the consent agenda, which would be C, D, and E? Moved. Any discussion? Sorry, moved, seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay. We'll go back to 7A regarding, and this is the recommendation that staff be directed to conduct a review This was a release from our in-camera meeting, and that, do you want to move the recommendation?
Yes, moved.
Moved. Second the recommendation. Second. Open up for discussion. Councillor Webering.
Okay, I'd like to support what I've heard here, and based on the email from, it was received from Leah Weinberg, and I believe Sarah read it out exactly. I think that's a great quote. I think anybody who knows Hal, that really captures it. And it tells a bit of history, because we are going to get to a point in Anmore where people are going to say that probably already does happen. Who's Hal Weinberg? Well, that little quote says a lot about him, so I support it 100%.
Any other discussions? Councillor Cryer.
Thank you, Mayor McCune. I too support that. I think it's perfect, and if it's the wishes of the family, I think we go with that.
Any other comments? Councillor Richardson.
Likewise, I'm in full support. Somehow what was moved in camera got sort of lost in translation a little bit. I believe there's always an intent to have more in consultation with the family, but we should actually make a motion either to accept what Sarah just said or what Leah wrote in. So if somebody would want to make a motion on that.
I believe it's the same thing as, yeah, it's the same thing. I've got the copy of the email here, so.
Okay.
So, I will note that with Ms. Schnell.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like they're requesting an amendment to the motion to expand on the plaque quote as per Ms. Weinberg's statement. And it seems to me that there's unanimous consent towards that, so we don't really need to amend the motion. We can just vote on the motion as amended.
As amended, okay. With that being said, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, we have letter B, letter dated July 31st from the Ministry of Municipal Services to the Village of Belcarre regarding the Sassamat Volunteer Fire Department is attached. Councillor Webering.
Well, I think, sorry, I guess any of the trustees could speak to this, but I just want to inform the village of what's going on. Myself, Mayor McEwen, and Councillor Trowbridge are trustees of the fire department. The fire department has been shared with, can everybody hear me? No. Yes, yes, no, mostly, somewhat. Okay, I'll try and speak up, but it doesn't seem to help with these new mics. For those of you who want, I'm going to try and summarize how the fire department is arranged quickly. We basically pay 50% of the capital for the entire fire department. Belcarre pays 50% of the capital. So that's trucks, fire halls. The rationale being that both communities need a fire hall. We can't serve both communities with one fire hall. There's insurance ramifications. We pay approximately 78% of operating costs because of our higher assessed values, and there's more calls in Anmore. Belcarre has requested several times to renegotiate the capital split, and it's put the trustees in a position that we realize that if we were to waver from that 50%, we would be providing the same service to our residents for more money. So that would make no sense to us, and we have a duty of care not to do that. The letter summarizes our position, and I would encourage everybody in the village to read it and kind of get up on what's happening. We really think that the fire department is functional the way it is, and I believe Belcarre is doing a disservice to themselves by pushing for this review, because we're not in favor of it. So I just wanted to clarify that, and if anybody else wants to add.
Yeah, I think it's, I would ask anybody who have any concerns regarding some of the public documents that are traveling back and forth between us and Belcarre, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I can certainly give you a bit of a Coles notes as to what's going on. But in essence, as Councillor Webering said, both municipalities have a requirement under the Fire Underwriter Survey to have a fire hall and volunteer fire departments and certain equipment to be able for the municipality. When the letters patent were established in 1979, the premise was, at that point in time, Belcarre was much significantly larger than Anmore. and that we could share equipment, because again, under the Fire Underwriter Survey, which dictates the equipment's needed, the response times, the type of volunteers, a lot of the requirements of the fire department, we both need 2 separate halls for our municipalities because of the distance traveled. So the premise was, and also the Fire Underwriter Survey as well, will dictate that we can only keep a first responding piece of apparatus 15 years, and then it has to be replaced. So we don't put a lot of mileage on a lot of our vehicles. Some of our stuff after 15 years that we basically send to auction only has about maybe 15 to 20,000 kilometers on it. So it is in very, very good condition and maintained impeccably. So the letters patent really sort of set up a pretense that we could share equipment, but we still needed 2 fire halls. So now that the fire halls are not, they have no seismic ability to them whatsoever. They're made out of cinder block. The actual one in Belcarra is actually part of the hillside is coming into the bay as we speak. So now it's a significant cost. It's going to be coming to both municipalities, and that's kind of what the agreement, or what the sort of misalignment of understanding is between the 2 departments. You know, we do pay according to our tax roll. Right now, Anmore pays about 75 to 80% of all our operating costs, and that equates to about $250,000 to $300,000 a year that we pay 75 to 80%. And the premise on that is that we receive more calls. But the problem also in Belcarra is they've had a tough time recruiting. They have a much older demographic. So a lot of the times when calls are coming out, it's the trucks traveling from Anmore down to Belcarra. And so these new halls need to have accommodations as well that people would, you know, younger people wanting to be a career fire department would give an opportunity to stay in the halls, provide a way better response time, probably save 5 to 10 minutes out of when a call comes in, they would actually be at the hall, being able to go right down to the truck and get out to the call as soon as possible. And you know, in life-saving terms, 5 minutes is a long time. But this is not going to come cheap. You know, we're talking a budget of probably in the $10 to $20 million range for both halls, and it's a significant thing. And so right now, we had a pretty extensive meeting on Thursday with the trustees, because again, we're as equal partners, we have equal representation. Just to make one thing very, very clear, we pay Metro Vancouver a fee to manage our fire department, Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department. The fire department is owned by both Anmore and Belcarra equally, but we pay about $32,000 to Metro Vancouver to administer it. They offer procurement, they offer insurance, they offer a ton of expertise. We get incredible value from that. I should also note that both sites of the fire halls, so the one in Belcarra and the one that's here, is on a reverter clause from the province. We do not own that land, nor does the fire department own that land. That land is owned by the province on the sole purpose of fire protection. So just to let everybody know, that's how it works. So we're in a bit of a negotiations right now, and a lot of letters traveling back and forth. We've made a firm commitment that we will be honoring the 50-50 because they need a facility just like we do, and we will not be changing that formula because in essence it would basically take money out of Anmore to help support them build a new fire hall, which we have not been supportive of. So that's that. But if I get, sorry, Councillor Trowbridge, who is also a fellow trustee. So that's myself, Trustee Weberink, and Trustee Trowbridge. So.
Yeah, just one other comment. This all may appear as if it's recent and sort of come out of the woodwork, but the reality is we've been going through this for 5 or 6 years now. And our current fire hall, not to be an alarmist, is not seismic. So if we were to have a significant seismic occurrence, it's entirely possible, I won't say probable, but entirely possible that our facilities would be destroyed with our equipment in it at the time the village would need them most. So we believe that this is not about money, although the negotiation certainly will be. We believe this is about the safety of our firefighters and our residents. So we're pushing very hard to get this completed and get shovels in the ground.
Good. Thank you. So could I get someone to receipt of the letter? Move receipt, moved, seconded. Any further discussion? See none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, now we'll move on to legislative reports. 9A, 2860 Sunnyside Road zoning amendment, bylaw number 667-2023. Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. So before you tonight is final adoption of bylaw 667-2023. I've attached the previous staff report to this rezoning, as it did occur a fair while ago now. So generally, it's under our infill application stream for rezoning. This actual zone went through a public hearing and received third reading as well, and it's been sat there since April 4th, 2023, I believe. So it's been sat waiting for a while. The proponent is now ready to complete this subdivision, and prior to that, we need to complete the adoption of the zoning bylaw. So it's before you tonight for adoption consideration.
Could you give us the recommendation, please?
I sure can. Second. Recommendation that council adopt zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw number 667-2023.
Someone to move that. Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. 9B, Pinnacle Ridge rezoning application, bylaw number 669-2023. Michelle first, and then I'll pass it over to Mr. Boyd.
We did receive 7 written submissions after we posted notice of consideration of this bylaw, and those submissions have been circulated to council.
Okay, Mr. Boyd, please, the report.
I will be deferring to my colleague here tonight. Josh will be providing the report tonight on the zoning bylaw, and I will be available for questions if there are after the report.
Thanks, Mayor McEwen. All right, so tonight I'll be presenting bylaw number 699-2024, zoning bylaw amendment for Pinnacle Ridge Hillside Development. So I'll try to get through this presentation at a reasonable pace. So I'll just ask that all questions be held till after the presentation, and then we can gladly answer them. So a bit of overview for the agenda tonight. So we'll go over the purpose, introduction, background, a little bit of the discussion, which includes community amenities, site servicing, site context and technical studies, proposed zoning amendments, legislative compliances, and the recommended option. So tonight, the purpose is to provide council with the introduction to the rezoning application for Pinnacle Ridge Hillside Development Lands, also known as Pinnacle Ridge. And this will sort of get the discussion going for the proposal, the current proposal, and amendment bylaw. So moving on to, skipped a bit. Yeah, going over the background here. So in June 2024, council determined that the Pinnacle Ridge OCP, or Official Community Plan Amendment application, and the proposed development was consistent with the OCP, Official Community Plan, specifically policy RLU 8, with a maximum density of 1.8 lots per acre for new CD zones, comprehensive development zones, within the hillside residential area. Council gave staff direction to bring forward a zoning amendment bylaw for council's consideration. In July 2024, the owners of the Pinnacle Ridge Hillside Development submitted a rezoning application in order to rezone the 4 parcels from RS1, the current RS1, to new comprehensive development zone. So a bit of an overview on the site and the land use plan. So the development proposed earlier in the OCP amendment application has changed slightly to include minor alterations to the site plan, and also proposes an increase to the total development or dwelling units from 261 previously to 269 units. So up 8 units there. Site area is roughly 75 acres, and the housing mix proposed is a mix of 51 single family dwelling units, 46 semi-detached dwelling units, and a mix of 172 townhouses and stacked townhouses. The density would be 1.25 lots per acre, equating to 3.6 units per acre. So moving on to community amenities, the applicant has proposed 25.7 acres, or roughly 34% of the total site, to be dedicated as parkland. These are in line with policy RLU 11 for the intent of the policy for the provision of trails, pathways, and open space or sensitive environmental areas. This also exceeds the 30% amenity contribution for comprehensive development zones outlined in the policy. It also aligns with policy P and TLU 6 in the official community plan, which supports the two primary and secondary priorities for parkland dedication for rezoning applications for number one, provision of trails and pathways, and the preservation of natural habitat. Road dedications, so the applicant is proposing to extend North Charlotte Road extension south towards North Charlotte Crescent, in line with OCP policy T16, basically to provide the extension towards Charlotte Crescent as a minor collector road. The applicant is also proposing a Ridgeside Mountain Drive extension, which extends east, going north and south for Road A and B. The potential extension would also allow for lands beyond to the north and south. So some of the features for the public road right-of-way include multi-use pathways along the roads, as well as 114 parallel parking spots. So the applicant also included a set of architectural and landscape design principles, which they believe would reflect Anmore's semi-rural character, and which is contemporary with upscale modern, craftsman, French country and elements, and also uses traditional materials, natural light, and textures that blend with the environment. They intend to regulate these design principles through a statutory building scheme placed on title. So this would regulate the architectural and landscaping guidelines. And they might also include a protective covenant to establish an environmental management area, just to kind of preserve the environment and landscaping outside of the developable area. So staff does recommend that the applicant provide further studies related to the management, to tree management fuel loads in regards to Fire Smart BC principles, just to help inform the implementation of that. So in accordance with Local Government Act Section 516, Council does have the option to enter into a phased development agreement between the village and the landowner. So a phased development agreement would kind of set the terms for the provision of the amenities, the timing, and phasing of the development. It also can set the terms for the registration of covenants under the Land Titles Act, Section 219 covenants placed on title. And this could provide the regulation assurances for both local governments and the landowners. So should council consider a phased development agreement in this context, then staff intend to consult legal counsel regarding the implication for the phased development agreement for this specific application. Regardless, it is recommended that any sort of land dedications be dedicated during subdivision stage in order to mitigate or avoid unknown risks, costs, or liability from associated public lands prior to any subdivision approval. Moving on to site servicing, so the applicant has provided a preliminary design brief for a potable water system. This is based off of previous technical studies, the village's water utility master plan, and data from Port Moody. So in essence, it extends existing water mains along the proposed road extensions from North Charlotte Road and Ridge Mountain Drive, and providing stubs to new road ends for future water mains to lands beyond. Would still be requiring a detailed system design and analysis and water modeling from the applicant if the application proceeds. In light of increased BC wildfires, staff also believe that the village should start considering water system capacities and resiliency for the hillside developments in terms of emergency preparedness. So staff does intend to discuss with the applicant as well as Port Moody in this regard moving forward. Staff recommend that a detailed system design, analysis, and water modeling be required prior to third reading and adoption. In terms of septic location and sizing plan, calculations were included based on housing units, size, potential for secondary suites, and the proposal calls for type 3 septic systems for individual systems for single family lots, as well as communal systems for townhome strata lots. So these are preliminary designs. Further assessments are still needed, such as additional engineering assessments for feasibility in terms of the overall site and per lot, as well as any assessment should consider soil suitability, the topography, hydrogeological, environmental sensitivities, assess potential groundwater, surface water impacts, and any sort of cumulative effects. So the proposed effluent discharge would be regulated under Fraser Health Authority as they approve any sort of sewage system with a sewage flow of 27,000 liters a day or less, roughly. Staff does recommend that a detailed septic design or study be required for communal systems for the site slope developments, so any sort of communal septic system on slopes, before granting third reading. Moving on to site context and technical studies, it's recognized that hillside development is characterized by steep slopes, water courses, and largely forested area. So the site design brief outlines cluster development on gentler slopes to the east and parkland dedication to steeper slopes on the west. This would aim to avoid disturbances to hillside and natural environment, and typically aligns with best practices for hillside development. So some of the technical studies provided today are all preliminary, and they address aspects such as environmental concerns or hillside hazards. Further studies and assessments, more detailed assessments will be required as the application proceeds. So overview environmental assessment, there's a set of environmental assessments conducted on 4 parcels to assess wildlife habitat, species at risk, ecosystems, and aquatic ecosystems. Several streams were identified as regulated under Water Sustainability Act, riparian areas protection regulations, and Fisheries and Oceans Canada. And so, the implications for that is that staff and village would require provincial approvals or development permits for riparian areas and streams prior to any sort of development. This might entail possible minor site plan modifications to the northern parcel, dependent on future assessments and approvals. So staff does recommend that a project-specific environmental impact assessment be conducted for the development phases, and it should build on the current overview environmental assessments at hand, and develop measures and monitoring plans to mitigate any sort of impacts moving forward. So we did receive a geotechnical assessment as well, preliminary assessments for all 4 parcels, and this evaluated the terrain, hydrology, amongst other factors. And so some key risks identified was the erosion and surface washouts caused by any sort of site disturbances that might cause some debris flow downslope. The report also recommended erosion sediment control measures be provided, as well as a stormwater management plan. Currently, the village does require erosion and sediment control plans prior to any construction, excavation, and land grading. The report also did a slope stability analysis, and so basically development feasibility was confirmed if the recommendations in the report were to be incorporated in the overall design. This also called for additional design and grading plans grading plan reviews to be conducted by a qualified professional. So staff does recommend that covenant, Section 219 covenant, be placed on title to ensure any adherence to the ongoing and updated geotechnical recommendation and measures moving forward. A hydrogeological investigation report was also received. This highlighted a detailed description of the soil and hydrogeological conditions. Seepage analysis was conducted to estimate the significant groundwater seepage or pooling in excavation sites. Groundwater impact assessment was also conducted and concluded that there was low risk of groundwater subsidence, subduction, or sinking of land due to groundwater. No impacts to nearby water wells, no significant impacts from Mossam Creek to the west and West Nunes Creek to the east, as well as no impacts from surface water drainage features. The report does recommend that groundwater management plan be provided and proposed measures included, and the proposed measures to be included in the erosion and sediment control plan. This should address seepage and precipitation during construction and address seepage and runoff post-construction for basements. So staff does recommend that these measures proposed be reflected in the covenant on title through 219. Stormwater strategy, so technical studies included our preliminary storm sewer layout. So basically, detailed design calculations will be required later on as the application proceeds. Again, staff does recommend a Section 219 covenant be placed on title for any sort of construction, repair, maintenance, or replacement of stormwater systems, defined through future assessment and design. Also to include design recommendations outlined in the geotechnical site assessment in the Section 219 covenants. So the applicant has not provided a tree inventory and assessment report just due to the scale, size, and cost associated with the proposal. However, moving forward, staff does recommend that a tree inventory and assessment report be provided prior to third reading, and that any hazard trees identified and removed be removed prior to any sort of land dedications, and that the applicant provide a tree retention plan and a restrictive covenant be placed on title prior to subdivision approval. Moving on to the zoning bylaw, CD8, to be amended in Part 9. So an overview, the permitted uses proposed are primary uses, one-family dwelling, two-family dwelling, townhouses, and stacked townhouses. The secondary uses proposed are secondary suites, accessory building structures, and home occupations. Minimum parcel size for the one-family dwelling is 700 square meters and 890 square meters for two-family dwellings. Strata lots, including townhouses and stacked townhouses, will typically be in conformance with the land use plan on the right there. Bill 44 requirements for secondary suites does not apply to private covenants on title. And so the applicant has provided their intention to place a statutory building scheme on title in order to prohibit secondary suites in two-family dwelling units and townhouses. Building setback, size, and height. So floor area ratio being proposed consistent throughout the primary uses, 0.6 FAR and 90 square meters for accessory building structures. Maximum building height is consistent with other zones in the village at 11 meters and 8 meters for accessory building structures. Setback being proposed at 6 meters for front parcel, 7.6 for rear parcel, 2 meters for exterior and interior side parcel lines. Site coverage being proposed is 45% site coverage for one-family and two-family dwellings and 60% site coverage for townhouses, strata lots. So the rationale being provided was that small lot sizes are kind of required for cluster development, coupled with the inclusion of secondary suites in one-family dwelling units, which necessitate slightly higher FARs and site coverage. So off-street parking standards were provided, generally in accordance with other zones, except for the requirement of 0.2 visitor stalls per townhouse, as well as 1 disabled person parking or 1% of the total required parking for a strata lot, whichever is greater. Included also additional standards for aisle, access, and maneuvering standards. Other standards were provided in the bylaw in terms of private and shared amenity area standards. This includes design, location, size, maintenance for strata parcels. A set of landscaping standards were also provided and also subject to the existing landscape bylaws. Generally requirements for front yard and overall site landscaping standards. A set of weight collection standards were also proposed for the strata lots, including access and maneuvering requirements. A set of definitions were included to just to define the new housing proposed here. So townhouses, stacked townhouses, attached, as well as strata parcel. So notice of council's consideration of bylaw 699/2024 was given prior to first reading in accordance with section 467 of the Local Government Act. That all legislative requirements have been met and council may grant first reading of the proposed amendment bylaw. So it's recommended that a public engagement plan be produced, just in terms of the scale of the proposed development. This will kind of inform the residents about the process as well as the proposal over here, and kind of help council with insights of community needs. These could include open houses or workshops or any sort of informal public engagement. So the recommended options on the table tonight are that Anmore Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 699/2024 be given first reading, and that Anmore Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 699/2024 and the development proposal be referred to the Advisory Planning Commission and the Committee of the Whole with the following items for discussion: community amenity contributions, public engagement strategy, financial sustainability, and any other topic staff believe to be important or council believe to be important for community discussion. And that staff bring forward a community engagement plan in relation to the rezoning of Pinnacle Ridge hillside development.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Josh. Can I get someone to move the recommendation and second it, and open up for discussion? Anybody? Councilor Weber.
Thank you for the presentation. I wrote a whole bunch of things down here that I'm concerned about, but I wonder if I'm a little too early on a lot of them. I realize that the layout here is just we're plunking down houses to give an idea of the density and rough look and feel. So I'm not going to get into my detailed questions. I guess the main thing I'm concerned about before moving it forward, do we see this as being financially sustainable? This was always our concern about these hillside developments, that, you know, they're putting us further and further in the hole. Do we see that moving in the right direction? Like, is it less bad from a financial perspective? Is it neutral? Or are we not there yet?
So the applicant has provided some information on financial sustainability. We as a staff have not interrogated per se that information yet, but that will be something that we will do if council grant first reading of this report. If you're asking me for my own personal opinion on whether I think RS1 is less bad over this hillside development that was proposed previously, I think the answer, in my opinion, is yes, because there are more folios or houses to be taxed regarding the infrastructure that is required to run that operation. So that would be my opinion, but there are other aspects of the financial sustainability of a development. So it's a bit more nuanced than that answer.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Richardson.
Okay, so I'll give the positive first, because I was told once you sandwich the bad stuff in between the good stuff. CD zones and hillside development were done in the OCP specifically to reduce costs of infrastructure to the village. So with that, I'm in complete agreement that CD up there is the way to go. There's no question about it. I also agree that we should have some alternative form of housing. If we want to have duplexes and or townhouses, I'm for that. I have no opinion on whether a stacked townhouse is better than a side-by-side townhouse, but so be it. I do have some concerns on how it will come forward through staff. So council can do rezoning and the approving officer does subdivision. And I think this is the first time in Anmore we've done 4 lots side by side with different owners. So I don't quite know how that's all going to play out, but I'm sure we can get an answer for that. When I look at the application, even as Council Werving says, you know, it's just blocks plunked down, it looks really, really dense to me. And I was trying to figure out why it's so dense. So you go into the numbers, and I'm sorry if this is too detailed for now, but it's that 0.6 that's in there. So if you walk around Anmore and look at a typical CD development, the floor area ratio is typically 0.3, and the lot coverage is 0.25. And up there, they're talking about up to 0.6 in lot coverage and a floor area ratio of 0.6. And if you run some of the numbers, and of course I picked the worst one, lot 26, which is, where did I put that here? About 9,000 meters squared, 12 units. It means that each of those townhouses could be 4,800 square feet. Now, if we're talking about young families moving in and affordability, a 4,800 view lot townhouse on top of a ridge is not affordable. So Paul worries a little bit about the financial aspects to the village. Is it going to break us? I'm wondering about the benefit to the village overall. I understand why a 4,800 square foot townhouse up there is great for the developer. I don't necessarily see why it's so great for the village. Likewise, on the single family lots, they're tiny. If you walk around and look at Anmore, the typical CD lot is half an acre to a third of an acre. There are a few quarter acres. The single family lot up there is 0.5 of an acre. It's really, really small. And by doubling essentially the floor area ratio, you get the same size house on half a size lot, right? Again, very good for the developer, maybe good for taxation, but it's gonna have a whole look and different feel than Anmore. So, you know, my preference would be, let's go forward. Let's change the 0.6s to 0.3s. I don't know if I can do that by a motion or not. I don't think it'll pass, but I would prefer that. But for the developers that are sitting there looking at me, the 0.6 is too much. Like, it really, I think, is too much, and I think it's going to destroy. From a fire perspective, when we talk about coach houses, We are making the coach houses 5 meters away from the house. You have put internal lot lines of 2 meters, which means they're 4 meters apart. We won't allow it for a coach house. It doesn't make sense that we should allow it for a full house. So I think there's a whole bunch of work that has to be done there to make it look more like the other CDE zones. Like take Ravenswood, double the size of the house, and that's kind of what you're gonna have up there from a density lot coverage stuff. And the last one is stormwater. Our storms are getting worse. Flat land absorbs water better than slope land. And up there with roads, the 60% coverage of the lot, driveways, sidewalks, and everything else, you've taken away most of the permeability of the land. So stormwater is going to be an issue. And in the reports it says 2 years, like a 2-year flow is kind of what you have to allow for. I think you got to have stormwater retention for up to like probably 10-year flows or something like that, because it's getting worse and worse, and you're taking away all the permeability. So those are my main comments on that. It's just too much building. And it's 1 million square feet of building rather than 500,000 square feet. And that doesn't even include the below grade stuff that's going to go in there, because it's steep slope and you can do below grade. So I'm against it from that aspect. I'm for it from a CD aspect, if that makes any sense.
Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah. Excuse me. First of all, I would like to say that I'm all for different types of housing stocks here. And I want to say I'm also very happy with Bellaterra and what we've just approved from Cordovato, but I definitely don't want to see the same thing on the hillside. To ask for something different and do the same thing is just a little strange to me. So in terms of the FAR of 0.6, for example, I believe that encompasses each of the lots, which could have multiple homes on it. Am I correct in that?
So are you talking about the
I'm
straddle?
talking about the lot coverage. Each one of those lots may have 2 townhomes or a cluster of 3 or whatever, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Also, one of the things that we spoke about in terms of our strategy was to get compacting and clustering so that infrastructure costs could be minimized. It can't be perfect, obviously, but once we inherit this and the infrastructure fades, we have to buy it again. And if this infrastructure is servicing clustered multi-unit, presumably the wisdom, and I'm asking Josh as the planner, is that less cost infrastructure services more homes, more people. Is that a fair statement? Okay. That's okay, you can nod, I can still see you.
We'll get on the record, yes.
That's all right. I was just thinking in terms of the people listening. So, in addition to that, I think this has yielded 34% of the land untouched and kept green, which I think would be challenging. I don't know anything about the economics. I don't know what square footage these townhomes are going to be when they finally play out. We're at first reading, and first reading is designed, as I understand it, just to say, let's go and explore this further. It's so, I don't want to be presumptuous and start telling developers what they're building or interpreting what they're building. But I'm very pleased to see that they're retaining greater than the required 30%. So is that something we asked for, or was that just something the group did?
This is an applicant-led proposal here, so we haven't, the staff, requested anything of them at this point in time. This is something we've received, so.
But CD zoning does stipulate 30%.
30, but
Yeah.
this
Yeah, I was
is-
going to say our
this is
OCP
great,
and
but-
other policies typically
But that's my
say
point, John. This is greater.
Yep.
It's greater than.
it's greater than what we would typically ask for. Correct.
Okay. Okay, I think that answers my questions. Thank you.
Anything more? Or Doug, are you good? Or?
I'm good except for the .6.
I just had a couple questions before we call the vote. On the map, can you bring up the map, please? With the roads specifically. That road that is the red road, sort of, I guess, well, I'll point to it right here. Where does this go? Because this right here is Fort Moody. And up at the north end, it's government land. So do we know where that road is supposed to be hooking into? Because on the one map, I show it continuing on.
I believe there's one parcel at the end there that it's still within Anmore, at the bottom of the page, it's say.
This is,
Yeah,
but here, this portion here goes right into.
we can review that, obviously, we would not be, we can
I
provide,
was just wondering, has there been an agreement made with Port Moody that?
no,
Oh, okay.
no.
And what about up to the north?
That's an additional parcel to the north if they're.
Right, yeah, okay. So there's two, and what about the second access? Is that a second access for the parcel on the north?
I can't remember if it's a contiguous parcel from north to south all the way down to where the pump station is, Mayor McEwen, but it might be a second access to that.
And the reason I ask that is because being around as long as I have, there's always been this making sure we're not landlocking neighboring properties and that, and there was always the idea of having a couple of different access points to that property.
Yeah, so my response to that would be, as we review this as staff, there's the legal landlocking and then there's the common sense landlocking of it as well.
Okay.
We would be looking at it from a common sense perspective to make sure that the parcel adjacent to it is not landlocked below the access that's given, because it's a pretty steep grade up there. So it'd be something that we'd be reviewing as we go through it.
I guess if you go to page 57, which was the initial picture that showed all the houses, it shows that property, or that road, the one on the far side here, continuing on into, which I'm going to say is Port Moody. And that's why I was a little confused as to where that was going to.
My map shows 2 Anmore lots.
Yeah.
That's what
We can bring that back, Mayor McEwen, but
Yeah.
I believe it's Anmore lots to the bottom of the page to the south.
Okay. Yeah, but this road's up here. Yeah, this is beyond it. This Charlotte. John, Charlotte goes right here. No, Port, okay. Port Moody actually comes down. Yeah.
To provide clarity, we've not had any conversations with
Okay,
Port Moody
okay.
currently. However, if we were showing access into another municipality, we would be having that conversation.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I know that area quite well, so that's what I was kind of curious about. So, so a couple things, just to finalize things. These lands are challenging, as was clearly seen in 2008, when a significant slide happened affecting Pinnacle Ridge number 1. And it was one of my first council meetings of being on council, and I'll tell you, being in the old Mom Murray house and having families that were tears in their eyes as to the challenges of that. This site is a challenging site. So on the one hand, I'm very, very pleased that the parties have all come together, because I had worked for many, many years trying to get all the parties together, because they need to work together to be able to get access to and from this property. So I'm really, really pleased with that. I am really, really pleased with the variety of housing. As I've commented, and I said at the OCP thing, this land is under private ownership, and they've been paying taxes on this land as it's zoned residential by previous councils, and this land will get developed at some point in time. It just comes down to economics. In 2016, when this group actually got together for a little bit and they came forward with a proposal, and it was brought to council's attention, but it failed due to the financial viability with the amount of infrastructure required. And where council really went with that is with uplands. The millions of dollars of infrastructure to service the very few houses, and that includes culverts, pump station, roads, etc. we really realized it was bankrupting our future village. So with that in regards, I look forward to supporting the analysis ahead and making this proposal to see where this proposal goes. And I really want to stress that we will be including extensive public engagement, as Josh said, that was part of this motion forward. So with that being said, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 11A, website redevelopment preview. Michelle.
Thank you. I'll just get my presentation loaded here.
Sir, we can't hear you.
I'm just going to bring up my presentation. All right, so I am very excited to give the first reveal of the website redesign project that's been undergoing for quite some time, longer than I've been here, actually.
Can you guys hear all right, or I'm having a tough time hearing myself?
I'll try and speak louder.
Could you hear me all right? Sorry.
The odd mic does work sometimes. Are these new mics?
Brand new today.
They're all. It has to be adjusted.
Okay.
It'd be nice if we could hear the person at the podium speak.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to continue on with the meeting. Michelle?
Okay. So, why is that not updating? Okay, so one of the reasons why an update was needed, the current website is quite out of date. It's been very difficult to find information. There's been technical challenges in the background. It's very hard to do updates. The developer has a hard time managing it. It's been very cumbersome for staff to make updates and keep the website current. It's not designed for display on mobile devices, so that's not very friendly. And the events calendar does this weird thing where it doesn't show the current day's events. So here's our current web page. You can see there's very dark, there's some weird links in the middle of the picture. The search function is hard to find. And all these links at the bottom are quick links, but there's way too many of them, and it really gets lost on people. So our new website is visually appealing. It's aligned with our brand. The menus are easy to navigate. There's 6 buttons to take people to the most commonly sought information based on the user feedback survey that was conducted in 2023. And the search bar is right there in the middle, very easy to find. Further down on the page, you'll see homepage features. This is where the latest news is, and then we've added another feature where you can go to read all the news. These are archived items that are no longer on the homepage scroll. The new calendar will show monthly at a glance on the left, upcoming detail on the right, and then a link at the bottom to view the full events calendar where you can get even more information. The next page down is called Feature Slices. So these are topics that maybe are hot topics that we want pinned to the front page. And as mentioned, there's quick links. There's 2 ways to get to these. The first one is a menu at the top right corner. These quick links will be showed on every single page. The other quick links, these buttons here on the front page match the quick links, but they're only shown on the home page. But these are, again, based on that user feedback survey, the items that were most requested. So just show a little video of that in action. So there's the navigation menu, the buttons, they pop up when you scroll over them. There's the quick links menu. Scrolling down, we see there's the latest news with the link to all the news, and there's the calendar with a link to the full calendar details, the feature slices, and then the footer after that. So our level 1 landing pages currently are dark, again, very text heavy. It's not very inviting, doesn't help people find what they're looking for. The new landing pages are much easier to find information. They match the navigation menu, and there's icons, and that again was something we were told was required in the user feedback survey. The agendas and minutes, right now it's very basic the way they're displayed, but it's confusing because they're displayed on multiple pages. So the council meeting agendas and minutes are here, and the committee meeting minutes and agendas are on every single committee page. So it's hard to keep track of all those. So a new feature that I'm really excited about is this table where you can sort the documents by the year and the meeting type. And there's a search function in here. We've added the capability to actually search through the content of the PDFs. So people will be able to find the topic that they're looking for, and they won't have to know exactly what meeting it was at. Alerts is a new feature as well. So red is going to be for urgent matters, such as like an evacuation. Let me just play this video here. And yellow would be for an advisory, such as boil water. And then when you click out of the alerts, you can view the web page as normal. As far as accessibility goes, I'm just going to pull my notes up here. Our developer tells us that at a website like this, a 60% score for the WCAG AA level is considered good, and we achieved a 77.3% compliance score. So what this means is that our site is showing strong accessibility. While level A allows organizations to cover the basics, AA goes further toward making web content accessible for users in a wider variety of contexts. Most organizations set their standards at level AA because it's both achievable and meaningful without being too disruptive to the design and development process of a website. So it's for this reason that most accessibility experts recommend this conformance level. And of course, we'll be looking for opportunities to improve the website even after launch. The site is now also mobile responsive. So on the left, you'll see an image of the desktop version, and on the right is the same page on a mobile device. The forms currently are this list of PDFs. Some of them are not even fillable. Users would have to download them, fill them out, print them, bring them into the office, or scan them and fax them in. So I'm really excited to see that we have new forms on the website where people will be able to process their information, and it is going to be a lot easier for staff to be able to process the incoming data. Another new feature is we've recently launched a new platform for our resident notification, and this would be the sign-up form for the e-news. So people will be able to sign up for 3 different categories: official notices, a general newsletter, and emergencies and urgent information, and they'll also be able to manage their own subscriptions online. So currently, staff is reviewing all the different pages to make sure that everything was transferred over and that everything is accurate. And at this time, we're also accepting volunteers for beta testing. So if anybody's interested, we really encourage you to email carla.shannon@anmore.com to volunteer to do that, and she'll get in touch with you on how. And I also just want to give a huge thank you to the staff who've worked really hard on this, in particular Carla, along with the web developers, to bring the website to where it is today.
Thank you very much. I would volunteer to be beta tested, but I'm not sure exactly what that entails, so I'm going to stay away from it. But anyway, thank you. I know that it's been long sought after. And so when was the day that it's going to be launching?
So we anticipate it'll launch in October, depending on how much feedback we get.
Okay, good. So please make sure everybody gets in touch with the village and provides any feedback and becomes a testing for their beta. Pardon me?
Beta. So it's kind of user acceptance testing to see if they can find information easily, if it's a good interface.
Good. Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to EDMA update, Indigenous Engagement Requirements. Report dated September 6th from Manager of Corporate Services attached. Michelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report is to provide Council with an update on Provincial Emergency and Disaster Management Act, EDMA, update, which received royal assent on November 8th, 2023. The Act contains several new requirements for emergency planning that will be phased in as regulations are released for risk assessments, business continuity plans, multi-jurisdictional emergency management organizations, state of local emergency powers, compliance and enforcement, and many of these are actually unknown at this time because it is a phased approach as the regulations roll out. However, it is clear that this will place more responsibilities on local governments and increase costs, which is making it challenging for staff to implement with the existing resources. An immediate change that is now in effect requires local governments to incorporate Indigenous knowledge and cultural safety in emergency management planning, and a requirement for consultation and cooperation with Indigenous governing bodies during an emergency. The village has received a one-time grant of $40,000 for the implementation of the Indigenous engagement requirements, and we're hoping that we can work with somebody who's experienced in facilitation and in this matter so that we can get assistance on that. So the recommendation is that staff be directed to engage a consultant at a cost of up to $40,000 to be funded by the Indigenous Engagement Requirement Grant to meet the objectives of the funding program.
Good. Could I get someone to move the recommendation? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Richardson.
Just for the benefit of the audience, if you can hear me, because I had a really tough time hearing that. The $40,000 is covered by grants. It's not coming out of Anmore's budget. So I think that should be clear on this.
And it's provincially mandated as well. So they're telling us what to do and they're actually paying for it. So for the initial anyway. So any further question, comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, we are on to Mayor's report. As said earlier, attended a fire trustee meeting this last Thursday. We're going to put all the information possible on the website to make sure everybody is well aware, but please don't feel any sense of worry about reaching out, and if you have any questions for it, please, it'd be great for one of us trustees will be able to answer those. Attended Murray Day on Sunday. Great event. There was probably close to 400 people here. Day worked out great. A big thank you to the organizing committee, Julie Mitten, staff that were here from Public Works. Really, really big thank you. The Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department, who who were cooking up smokies for the whole day, and I don't think they ran out this year. Big congratulations to Julie Mitten. She won our Community Spirit Award. Julie leads all our scouting activities, which is going to lead me into a little bit of a plug. This Friday, there's tickets available for the Anmore Scouts Adult Bingo this Friday in this room. There'll be fun prizes. There'll be beer and wine. There's going to be food as well. So please get your tickets and come out. Great supporter for, they're planning on doing a work trip down to, I think it's Costa Rica as well. And so they're doing it as a fundraiser. So please come on out. Friday night will be a first sort of adult venue event in here. So it should be great. Just wanted to let others, BC Hydro, normally we have meetings with them next week at UBCM. I have talked to the community liaison person, and we will, they'll be reaching out to Jazz. We'll be setting up a meeting for next week. Not an official meeting, but just a meeting. Purpose of my meeting is just simply the fact that they have stopped contributing to the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department regarding coverage, and the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department does a lot of coverage for them during the summer. Again, they're not a taxpayer, so they're not funding it at all through some of the operations, so we're going to be pressing them. They used to give between $5,000 and $10,000 a year, so we're going to pressure them to that. Myself and I believe Councillor Cryer and Councillor Weberinkle will be at the meeting as well, because they're both registered at UBCM. So yeah, and I'll be attending UBCM next week. Cell coverage in the village. And I was hoping that we could get a motion or something, but the cell coverage in the village has absolutely become horrible. It used to be amazing. Now I've got to literally stand in one area of my house to even make a cell phone call. And I know when I'm talking to other members of the community, they're doing the same thing. It's gotten really bad. It used to be amazing. And I purposely went on to TELUS because the coverage was so great, which is also affiliated with Bell. I have talked to the representative at TELUS, and they said that we need to do something from a municipal point of view. So I'm wondering, we just provide some direction that you could fire a letter off to them?
Yeah, I think staff can just do some research on that and
Okay.
get the ball rolling.
Perfect, good. Because I think we're all suffering from it. It's bad. Yeah, you have one chair. You can. Okay, and then two things which Chris is going to talk about in a little bit, so I won't go there. And that's about it. So please, I know that you can get tickets for the adult bingo. Is it through the village or is it through? It's online?
Yeah.
Okay, through the Anmore Scouts. Okay? Councillors' reports. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. A couple of things. You mentioned a few of them. One is UBCM next week. The other was Ma Murray Day, which was very well attended and lovely. No rain, which is always a bonus, but special thank you to staff and the volunteers that helped out. And also a congratulations to Julie Mitten, who got the Community Member of the Year. I also would like to welcome Jazz. I think it's your first meeting. Nice to have you with us. A couple of meetings, I guess one meeting, Tri-Cities Food Council, and then also Mayor McEwen and I took a tour of the C-Bus, which was very interesting. That is it. Thank you.
Councillor Webering.
A few things. I attended a zero waste meeting last week. Now that's not so unusual because I do that every month. But if you look at page 103 on the agenda package, there's a letter from Metro Van. We're updating the solid waste management plan, and they're always looking for community input. So I'd encourage you, if you have any opinions about how we manage our waste in the region, there's an engagement web page that you can click on and give your comments. I will also be attending UBCM, as Mayor McEwen said, next week. I would also like to congratulate Julie Mitten for winning the Community Spirit Award. And I understand that there's a Cub Car trophy here somewhere that I'm supposed to restore, which I offered to do. It's a trophy I made about 10, 15 years ago, and I noticed it was getting a little rough.
It may have been lost in the move.
It
We
what?
can look for it. It may have been lost in the shuffle in the move, but we can look for it.
Okay. Also, it's too bad Lena, our financial manager, isn't here, but I heard through the grapevine that she was at a conference and Anmore's name came up as one of the better managed communities for financial management. Do we have any information on that? What she was talking about?
We were, I think, in the top 3, and it was relation to reserves compared to assets.
Oh, okay. That's great. We should advertise that. That's really something to be proud of. Also, I was at the Sasamat Volunteer Fire Department Trustee meeting, as I spoke to earlier. Ma Murray Day was great. It was nice having the bouncy castle in here. It looked a little strange, but it was good. And then several people asked me about fireworks this year, and would we be able to do them? I wanted to open that up for discussion. I've already run it by Sabina.
What did she have to say?
She was shocked. I don't think she was ready for it.
So I can tell you, it is one of the lowest events regarding organization, because in essence, in the past I've done it ever since I've been elected. So in 2008, I started off because Ron Dunn used to do it, and then I got into doing it, did it a few years, and Marco Mininsky, who works at a special effects company, so he was able to get us the fireworks at half price. We then had certain villagers step in, giving a contribution towards it, and then we had, then the hall We had one year where it was too dry. You know, I heard a lot as well on Sunday at Mary Day saying, are we going to be coming back for fireworks? But it is not without its people that are not too keen on it. I don't know how to move forward. I guess the first thing I could do is I could make a phone call to Mark Kobaninsky to see if he could get us a wholesale rate at the fireworks. If he has that opportunity still, that would be the first thing. And then the second thing would be is, you know, maybe it's something, doing an online poll to see if the villagers are interested in it or not, or something as simple as, I don't know. I really don't know.
I think there may already have been some discussions with staff, but I don't want to commit Karen to anything while she's not here. So I think maybe she can just provide an update at the next meeting, which is the beginning of October.
We'll be right at the beginning of October? Okay. Councillor Richardson?
My dog hates fireworks, so just on that note. However, the new thing seems to be drone shows. So is a drone show cheaper, more expensive than fireworks?
It's considerably more expensive, and the problem is if it's windy at all, is that they can't operate. And so there have been a few events where drones have just simply, people have shown up and then they weren't able to be performed, and it caused some problems. Pitt Meadows did a drone show on, they are, I think, slowly leading to that place, but they are very expensive to do. So I think, let me make a phone call and see if it's something that is possible, and then we'll see. And like I said, I think it's something, if we got on this right at the beginning of October, we could do it. I know what I heard a lot from the families who really enjoy the McCulloch Paul subdivision as well as Ravenswood. It gives them a place to come to. It also, hearing people now that we finally have the hub, if it's a rainy night, people can literally be inside. We can serve hot chocolate without having to run from various washrooms to get hot water. So there was a lot of that sort of conversation going with the hub now. This is a game changer. I don't know if I'm getting too old to light the fireworks off, because it is quite for 15, 20 minutes, it's pretty terrifying. You're going pretty hard. And of course the fire department will have nothing to do with it. So let's keep the discussion going. Okay? Yeah. Any other councillor reports? Councillor Richardson.
Very briefly, welcome back to the fall. The weather's changing. And then I'm really surprised and impressed that there's so many people here being it's debate night. So thank you for coming out.
I don't know if it was much of a debate from what I'm hearing. Anyway, Chief Administrator Officer's report.
Thank you. So I also wanted to introduce Jazz. I know she's been introduced before, but it's her first meeting here, and I just wanted to thank her for coming and typing so furiously. A reminder that this Thursday's Public Safety Committee meeting has been canceled. On behalf of staff, also wanted to congratulate Julie Minton as the winner of the 2024 Community Spirit Award, and express our thanks to staff and the incredible volunteers who worked so hard to make Mary Day a success. A brief reminder that BC Hydro will be undertaking road improvements at Bunsen Lake Recreation Area. There may be traffic delays in accessing the lake throughout September and October. I believe they're going to be down to one lane. And I'll refer to the Manager of Development Services for an update on the multi-use path sodding and bus transit shelter projects.
I might go off script a little bit as well. There's a few other minor updates that's happening in the development. Is that better for you? No? Is that good? So first off, you'll notice that Sunnyside Road, the multi-user pathway, has been operational for a while, but it's only had dirt along the side of the roadway, and so we'll be installing the grass in the next couple of weeks here, just as the weather turns. The reason we don't install it prior to is because the grass will die off during the summer months, and so we're waiting for it to cool down a little bit and the rain to start to make sure that the sod takes, and we won't be having maintenance issues with it. So that's number one. We're finally getting going again on getting the bus shelter installed. I've contacted the manufacturer. We're moving that forward. Shouldn't take too long to get that resolved. Another piece of update, as Councillor Richardson was talking about, it's the fall and things are starting to change. So we are moving forward with the plans for the operational yard upgrades. And as part of that is the kind of the brine system that we've talked about for a number of years. It won't be ready for this year, but we have looked into purchasing brine from a local municipality, so we can start using our brine infrastructure at this point as well. And then finally, we are now looking at certain upgrades to this building that we didn't quite get in previously, and I think one of them might be looking at some of sound dampening within this room to help with the microphones. As we can see, the new microphones haven't quite done what we want them to, perhaps, and so we'll be looking at some economical soundproofing, hopefully, to stop the echoing going back and forth off the hard surfaces. So that's generally it from.
Good. I just, you brought up one thing. When I was talking to Corporal Reimer on the weekend, there is some issues going on at Bunsen Lake right now. The reservation system is over for the year, and there's been some fairly significant issues with people belligerent to the camping once the parking lot, which holds 600 people, is full, people wanting to keep coming in, and so the police have had to be called on several occasions. So it is a challenge, and just to let you know, that reservation system is no longer in effect. So
Just another comment about Bunsen Lake. You might notice, doing a few upgrades at the entrance. That is actually BC Hydro doing those upgrades, and not the Village of Anmore. We've been in coordinating the works with them, but they're undertaking those works as of right now to upgrade some of that infrastructure.
good. Okay. We have some information items. I'll now open it up for public question period. 2-minute time limit applies to speakers. Have we worn everybody out? Okay. Motion to adjourn. Move second. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.